Welcome to Retail Management Hero. Store Manager is the engine for the RMH point-of-sale solution. It is where stores can set policies and manage users and customers, store inventory, and sales and promotions. Store Manager also provides powerful analysis and reporting tools. In this video, we will explore how stores can establish customer policies in Store Manager. We will discuss the pros and cons of requiring customer selection and how local laws may impact how you collect and use customer information. We will also look at which settings control whether customer selection is required or optional, and which setting controls whether employees can set up new customers in POS. We will look at adding customers in both POS and Store Manager. We will also look at entering a transaction where customer selection is prompted, and where customer's percentage off discount is applied to a sale. Are you ready? Let's get started. When you set up your store's customer policies in Store Manager, one of the first questions you will have to ask yourself is, should customer selection be required or optional at POS? What are some business scenarios where requiring customer selection at POS is either necessary or advantageous? Probably the most obvious scenario is a store that processes online orders or mail orders. For those stores, selecting a customer is a necessary first step in fulfilling sales. Another scenario might involve stores that prepare work orders or quotes. Work orders and quotes are usually tailored to specific customer needs and may include customer discounts. There are pros and cons to requiring customer selection at POS. One of the most important pros is that you can personalize the customer experience at your store. Other significant pros are that it streamlines processes like emailing receipts, shipping to different addresses, and providing discounts and tax exemptions. Other pros to keep in mind are that it allows you to keep a detailed purchase history for customers, and it supports store loyalty programs. There are also some cons to requiring customer selection at POS that you should consider. One big con is customer reluctance to share their name or contact information with stores. For example, a customer making a large purchase, perhaps one that involves product warranties, will be highly motivated to share their personal information with stores. On the other hand, a customer purchasing a few small items will have almost no motivation to share their personal information unless they will receive a customer discount or their purchase will earn them points in a loyalty program. Another thing to consider before you require customer selection at POS is whether there are any local laws that affect how you collect and use customers' personal information. Many states, provinces, and other jurisdictions have consumer data privacy and protection legislation that specifies when stores can collect customer data, how stores can use customer data, and how stores must protect customer data. It is quite common for consumer data privacy and protection legislation to include an opt-out clause. This clause typically requires stores to give customers the option to opt out of giving stores their personal information. If you decide to require customer selection at POS, but you are legally required to provide an opt-out option to customers, consider creating a bucket customer. This is a non-specific generic customer, such as Bird Store, that cashiers can select at POS when customers opt out of sharing their personal information. If you decide that requiring customer selection at POS is not appropriate for your store, but you want to select customers whenever possible, you can always set up Store Manager to prompt for, but not require, customer selection. This encourages cashiers and floor sales to collect customer names and contact information, but provides greater flexibility when customers opt out of sharing personal information. All right, let's get started with the demo. Depending on your business model and store policies, you may want to restrict who can add customers to just knowledgeable and experienced store managers who have access to Store Manager. Alternately, you may want to open up who can add customers to everyone who uses POS, including cashiers and floor sales. We'll start with the settings that control whether customer selection is required or optional at POS. Click File and select Configuration, then expand Store Rules and Customer Options. Use these options to require customer selection for orders, quotes, or sales. When these options are selected, the customer lookup screen displays in POS after login and prior to transactions. You must select a customer before you can enter a transaction, such as a work order, quote, or sale. Clear the check marks if you want customer selection to be optional. If you select the Prompt for Customer Selection option, the customer lookup screen displays in POS after login and prior to transactions. However, you can click Cancel to dismiss the customer lookup screen and enter a transaction without selecting a customer. You have probably noticed the option Allow New Customers at POS. If you do not want to add customers at POS and instead want to add all customers in Store Manager, clear the check mark beside this option. For this demo, we're going to set up the store to allow new customers at POS and require customer selection for orders and quotes. We are not going to require customer selection for sales. Instead, we are going to rely on Prompt for Customer Selection to encourage cashiers and floor sales to select customers for sales. Since we set up the store to allow new customers at POS, let's start by looking at how to add customers in POS. We'll click Customers and select New Customer. On the Customer and Billing tabs, we can enter the name and contact information used to bill the customer. If the customer uses a shipping address that is different from their billing address, we can enter it on the Shipping tab. We can set up multiple shipping addresses as required. The Options tab is where we can identify customers as tax exempt or specify any discounts the store has decided to extend to the customer. What if you only want knowledgeable and experienced store managers to add customers in Store Manager? To set this up for the store, you would clear the check mark beside Allow New Customers at POS. Let's look at how to add customers in Store Manager. We'll click Customer and Customers, then click New. On the Billing Information tab, we can enter the name and contact information used to bill the customer. If the customer uses a shipping address that is different from their billing address, we can enter it on the Shipping Address tab. We can set up multiple shipping addresses as required. As you just saw, the process for adding a customer is almost identical in POS and Store Manager. What if you require certain information when adding new customers? That's easy. Just select required fields on the customer policy screen under Setup. For example, you might want to make sure that every customer in the system is identified by their full name, and depending on your business, you may need their phone number, email address, or even their mailing address. Now let's look at how the Prompt for Customer Selection and the Require Customer Selection for Orders and Quotes options that we selected earlier affect transaction entry in POS. We set up the store to Prompt for Customer Selection. When this option is selected, the customer lookup screen displays after login and prior to transactions. This prompts us to select a customer for each transaction, but we have the flexibility to click Cancel and enter the transaction without selecting a customer. However, we also set up the store to require customer selection for orders and quotes. What happens now that we've clicked Canceled and closed the customer lookup screen without selecting a customer? Let's click Orders and select Work Order. We'll add some feeders to the work order and attempt to tender the transaction. As you can see, because we set up the store to require customer selection for orders, we cannot tender the transaction until we select a customer. Once we select a customer, we can tender the transaction and complete the work order. We would get the same error if we tried to enter a quote, because we also set up the store to require customer selection for quotes. Now let's look at an end-to-end transaction with the store set up to Prompt for Customer Selection and selecting a customer who the store has given an automatic 10% discount, which is defined on the Options tab of the customer screen. The customer wants their store discount, so when the customer lookup screen displays and we ask them for their name, they happily provide it. We'll enter some items. Remember the customer's 10% discount? The discount is automatically applied to all items in the transaction, and we can see the total savings at the bottom left of the transaction screen. We tell the customer how much they are saving by shopping at the store today, and they happily pay for their transaction and say they'll be back again soon for more bird feed. And that's it. We hope you enjoyed this video tutorial explaining how to establish customer policies in Store Manager.